Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Olympus Smite League. We got a Sparta division matchup heading your way today between the Wailing Banshees and the Warriors of Albion. To bring you all the action, I am Dr. Shrew, joined by Bloody Lifetime with Cocky on the Spectator. As we get ready for picks and bans, how you feeling going into this one, Lifetime?
It's going to be an interesting game because both of these teams are undefeated and both teams are 3 and 0 at this point. So, at the end of this game, we're going to have one team that's still undefeated and going to be the only one in this division in this conference that is still going to be undefeated.
Yeah, definitely an important match for both of these teams to keep that streak alive. We'll have to see who can get the upper hand as the bands start to come through here. Looks like the Raven is going to be first to be taken away, followed up by the Kali. Both pretty standard bands here right off the bat.
Yeah, no surprise to see Ravana and Kali ban. Ravana being one of those guys that can use that very tanky hybrid build so aggressively and so well right now. And Kali being one of those premier jungle picks, being able to be completely, unkillable in that destruction ultimate and being so much strong through these recent patches. It's no surprise to see her taken away.
100%. And the Wailing Banshees will follow that up with an Agni ban as well. Not something that we usually see, banned out here in the first phase with so many good picks on the table, but still a very strong mage. It seems like they don't want to deal with in that mid lane.
Yeah, it's one of those guys that can definitely provide a lot of support. The rain of fire bombs, coming through. It provides a lot of CC, a lot of, of that mortar mage style, and they're not looking to want to deal with it today.
Something we do see quite often on the other side is the Marticarous ban that comes through here for the side of the Warriors. Such a strong god that can flex into both mid and duo. Not someone they want to see, so they'll go ahead and ban that out second for their side.
Yeah, with the Marticarous being so strong with that transcendent Soliator build, going that very high power, high sustain build, we're seeing him a lot more in the mid lane than we are in the duo lane. And he is a very powerful god with that death from above ultimate. You know, a great god that I'm seeing banned through every game lately.
Yeah, not a god that anybody really wants to let through. Even with the nerfs that they've tried to give into him, he's just so strong. The Wailing Banshees will finish out their first round of bans with the Sun Wukong, a solo laner that we've seen a good bit of here on 10.6, but not one that I would really put in the top one or two. Why do you think they don't want to deal with the Sun Wukong over anything else?
I mean, there's no surprise that they're banning the Sun Wukong, and we're
Baba
also going to be seeing the
Yaga.
Jormungandr banned quite as well. Both of them having a lot of sustained high aggression in the early games that can really kind of scale into becoming a problem.
Tier.
Get ahead, get good early, and then kind of use that to
Hachiman.
snowball throughout the game. So that's why you're going to see those solo lane picks kind of banned out.
Picks going through rather quickly here. Wailing Banshees top overall. Take that Baba Yaga. Probably the best mid around right now with the safety and
Nice.
damage that she can bring. But it'll be answered back by the Thor and Tyr locked in for
Ganesh.
the Warriors on the other side.
Yeah, and Baba Yaga being one of the best, like the premier mid laner here. Being able to build prophetic cloak and do so well with that ethereal staff and the Soul Reaver build, doing being so safe and doing so much damage. And Thor and a tier on the other side. Thor being a gray semi-global ultimate, and tier with the recent buffs and his guard stance, able to get stuns off with the ultimate, as well as being able to pull and displace your enemies. Always a powerful tool.
There's going to be silences abound as well as it's a Nox and the Hachiman locked in for the Wailing Banshees, while the Ganesh is the third pick for the Warriors. Both of these supports will have the ability to silence out the other team and be very annoying in the process. And then Hachiman's just so hard to box in that dual lane.
Yeah, and Nox a god that we used to see in the mid lane years ago, but has repositioned herself to be in that support role. Having a good 2 second long silence, a root and a cripple, having a ultimate that decreases damage of your opponent's output by 30% is a very potent god in that support role with that place. We're seeing the Hachiman picked up, a very good ADC right now, and Ganesh. I've been seeing a lot more picked up
Rom.
recently. Using that using those Dharmic pillars and his remove obstacles quite effectively.
Definitely a good pickup. Bans coming through very quickly as well. It's the Ola Run and the Discordia taken away by the Wailing Banshees, and the Achilles and the Cthulhu are the bands coming from the Warriors of Albion before they pick up the Rom to round out their dual lane with their fourth pick.
Yeah, and no surprise to see Achilles banned out. With getting that buff to his execute threshold, as well as the Discordia and the Oleron. The Oleron, an interesting choice, not being in the best spots right now, but having such a good ultimate and team fight presence with that Sanctified Fields. They're and then they're going to be picking up that Rama. One of the top three ADCs in the game still having so much versatility and having so much range to potentially get picks in those backlines, even with the Astral Barrage ultimate.
Yeah, Rom definitely still in a very good
Bakasura.
spot.
Colin.
And on the other side, the Banshees will lock in the Bakasura and the Kakulin to round out their draft. A jungler that we've seen a lot of prioritization towards here on 10.6. Kind of just out farm everybody with that eat minion ability. And then Kakulin never really in a bad spot, at least decent.
Tiamat.
And with how much prioritization we've been seeing for Bluestone, he's definitely been feeling a lot better over there in that solo lane.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Kuklane being a force to be reckoned with anytime that Bluestone is kind of in the meta and being one of those great solo laners. And that Bakasura, you mentioned that eat minion ability, a god that can really try and snowball out of control, get farm early, take it away from your opponents with that eat minion for those secure on those camps, and try and use that to extend the lead and get it early on in the game. And finally, a Paragon taking Tiamat into the mid lane. A god that has, fallen off more recently, was the best mid laner in the game at the start of season 10, but with the shifts is kind of in an interesting spot. She's still great. She's still a good god, but she's not one of those top picks quite anymore.
Yeah, she still does bring quite a bit, as you mentioned. And when she's in that ground stance, she can be pretty tanky and hard to deal with as well, kind of similar to the Baba Yaga. Not the same level of safety that Hunter will have across the side of the lane, but a similar play style with being able to kind of almost frontline from that mid lane while also dishing out tons of damage.
Yeah, and looking at these two teams, both of them very solid squads. We got the Nox, we have the Baba Yaga, two of the best mid and support in the game right now. We have a Thor, we have a Rama, and a Ganesh on the other side as well. You know, a bunch of gods that have either global present or just can lock down your enemies quite very well.
Yeah, it should be quite the matchup. If I had to put money on one of these teams, I think I'd have to go towards the Wailing Banshees. Baba Yaga, Hachiman, those are two just extremely top tier picks right now. Plus, you add in the Kakulin and that Nox for their front line, and the Regurgitate and the true damage that'll come out of Jinxed Q on this Bakasura will be really hard to deal with. I don't know. It's gonna be a challenge for this Warriors team to try and keep up into it, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, the only thing that is of concern for this Wailing Banshee squad is the fact that they do have someone filling in for Roman here, having not having their full main roster. But that is something that we'll have to see on how much that affects the team and their synergy going into this game.
Definitely Rushology stepping up here for the team to take the place of that support will be piloting that Nox. So keep an eye to see on how well he can kind of fit in with the team. See if they can get the game one win here. But on the other side, the Warriors, they're no slouches either. As you mentioned, they have a lot of good pieces of the puzzle here. I think it's just a bit more down to execution for their side. What do you think this Warriors squad needs to prioritize to make sure that they can keep up with a like sort of the top tier draft that this Wailing Banshee squad has picked up?
The one thing that they're gonna have to do is try and lock down and make this Baba Yaga as little as a problem as possible. This is going to be one of their main targets throughout this game, knowing how strong she is in that mid lane. The Ganesh, a great counter pick to her, able to silence her out of her blast off ability with that or to be able to just silence her and keep her in place if she and not even allow her to get into it in the first place.
Definitely going to be a lot of pressure going towards Hunter in the mid lane because of how good Baba Yaga is currently. But if anyone can handle that pressure, I bet it's going to be Hunter. So we'll have to see how things can go out. Should be a very interesting matchup across multiple lanes. Tyr versus Cucullin. It's a matchup we've seen time and time again at all levels of play. Who do you think is going to have the upper hand here in this laning phase?
In the laning phase, I do have to give it to the Kook lane, even with the tier buffs that came through here in the most recent patches. Kook lane being such a dominant presence in the early game. However, I think whenever they start getting into this mid to late game, I think that tier is really going to have a time to shine, being able to be more available and assisting his teammates in those team fights.
A difference in play styles between the Cucullin of Ultra Lord Bob and Double on the tier. Find out which one's going to work out better for them. The dual lane, if you had to say one was going to get early pressure, is there one that kind of stands out? Because Nox and Ganesh, to me, neither one really scream that early game advantage.
Yeah, between a Nox and a Hachiman versus a Ganesh and a Rama, it's really going to come down to is able to get that clear faster. And due to Rama's abilities, his astral arrows going through the minions, and Hachiman being, forced to use that banner to try and clear, I think that it's going to lean a little bit towards the Rama and the Ganesh, just ever so slightly for them, and instead of the Nox and the Hachiman of the Wailing Banshees.
As we hop into game here properly, and these teams wait for buffs to spawn, we can use this moment to take a look at some of the builds, see how these teams are starting. It's the Protector's Mask for Rushology on the Nox. Got quite a bit of nerfs recently. I haven't seen it prioritized quite as much. Do you like this pickup here for the starter item for this Nox?
Yeah, I still like to see that mask picked up. I still think it is a great item for those mage style supports. And I think it is what you have to pick up because it scales so well into that mid to late game for those mage supports.
Definitely feels very good on some of the squishier base stats of a mage support. Looks like already aggression coming out from the Bakasura. Jumps forward trying to find anything possible, but Bakasura not really known for the level 2 early pressure, will instead just immediately get ready to farm. Over in the solo lane though, it looks like Ultra Bob took quite a bit of damage from something. It's allowed Double to have a little bit of an advantage over here in the early game.
And that's surprising to see that Double has kind of gotten some aggression and was able to take Ultra Lord Bob down to half health there in the early game. You know, I understand Tier got those buffs, but Kook Lane usually a dominant presence throughout the early game. Maybe getting a little bit behind here at the start.
Definitely not. It's only, it's the first wave. Definitely not game breaking for Ultra Lord Bob here. It's plenty of time to still become that lane bully that Cucullin always is. In the mid lane though, still some poke going back and forth. Looks like 12 gauge took a bit of damage from a Hunter here on this Baba Yaga, who's actually backing relatively early. Already out of mana it seems, and just wanting to top that off for the time being. The dual lane pressure looks to be going the way of the Warriors, as you mentioned, able to kind of ward away this Banshee side squad on the side of the Warriors about in the dual lane, excuse me. Words, they're hard. Aggression though over in the solo lane is Ultra Lord Bob could be under a bit of pressure. Fearless pushes him safely under the tower though, so be able to get that back off and won't have to worry about anything for at least the next few moments.
Yeah, and a good rotation, out of 12 gauge to try and get that kill, but not having the damage in this early on in the game. The Kook lane with his health pots, with his chalices, is going to be able to get out and be fine, especially after the tier Fearless pushing him under the tower.
Pointed out by production here, the tier 2 of the book tree is the choice for Paragon on this Tiamat, as there is aggression over here in the dual lane to interrupt my thought. Low health bar for this Rom, but it looks like with the peel of Longfound we'll be able to stay safe in the lane for the time being. But with the nerfs to Book of Thoth and that Tablet of Destinies, we haven't seen mages really start that whatsoever in the mid lane. What do you think Paragon's going with his build so far?
I mean, the only thing that he probably can go is to go into that Book of Thoth for the Tablet of Destinies. I don't see him picking up a Soul Reaver first item or picking up Polynomicon. So my thought is that this Tiamat's going to be going into that Book of Thoth.
To find out, there was a time where you started with tier 2 book and just kept it for a while because of how strong tier 2 items were. They kind of shifted that a little bit in the bonus update for 10.6. It might still feel good enough for Paragon that that's the decision they want to go. I'll have to find out if they decide to upgrade it to tier 3 or not here in the early game.
As you mentioned, the tier 2s being so good. People still picking up the second tier of Doom Orb, that Curse Orb, due to just how good having the still full Doom Orb passive, just not the extra movement and power is. But it does appear that a Paragon will pick up that Book of Thoth here to start up this game.
That's an interesting decision. We don't often see Book of Thoth anymore. Took quite a bit of nerfs recently and just completely fell out of favor. Do you like this start for the Tiamat? Is there just something I'm missing that makes it worth it?
I'm not the biggest fan of this pick. I understand how mana intensive Tiamat can be and how you need that mana going and flowing in order to really be able to sustain yourself and be in those engagements. However, with the shift of the items, with Book of Thoth not being as strong as it used to be, I really question how this play is going to work out going into this game.
Definitely going to slow down Paragon if nothing else. I mean, on the other side, Hunter's finished out that Spear of Desolation, already has a pretty good power spike, but Paragon on the other side is going to have to work on stacking that up before they're able to hit any sort of similar power spike. There is a rotation from 12 gauge who could catch the back. He does get the wall lands, double tap as well, but too icy. Not too worried about it. Actually looking to just take one more wave since the back was interrupted there, or should be able to finish off of that Devil's Gauntlet fairly soon.
Yeah, once, having those Devil Gauntlet online will be able to get him to start building those stacks and finally, really trying to get that advantage that he already has on Poor Nickel, already having it well over a level on him already in this early game.
Purple buff invade attempt here, and Dharmic Pillars will come out as well as the Regurgitate. Up into the Astral Barrage goes Core Nickel, trying to turn around some of the damage, and it seems like the purple buff invade was successful by the Banshees, that they're stripping away that experience gold and the buff from the Warriors of Albion, already getting aggressive on this map.
Yeah, and a great invade there by the Wailing Banshees in order to take away that purple buff from that Rama, putting him further behind this Hachiman into this early game. He's already down a level, and now we're taking more gold away from him.
Longstown might have bit off more than he could chew. Baba Yaga goes into the home sweet home, and we'll get first blood here in the mid lane. Taking out that Ganesh, the Anvil of Dawn lands, gets a good stun onto Rushology. But this Nox is fairly tanky and is living for the time being, but rotation in early here from double The tier from the solo lane making his way into the mid lane and will get a kill in return for the Warriors. Now it's low health bars for the Bakasura as well, and Jinx will fall. That's a double kill for double on this tier. He's just off to a crazy good start with an early rotation to mid.
Yeah, double getting a double there in the mid lane, being a good counter rotation to that fight, able to pick up two and really kind of shift that first blood gold back into being more even instead of them being down, as well as getting a big chunk of XP for himself as well.
Yeah, a tier from ahead is a very terrifying prospect. So if Double can continue to kind of build the lead that he's gotten now with those 2 kills here in the early game, could be very problematic for the Wailing Banshees here in the next few minutes.
And right now, the Wailing Banshees are placing some wards over the mid lane, trying to get control of that Stygian beacon that's going to be coming up here in about 4 minutes. Try and, get eyes on that area so when they know if people are rotating into the mid lane or rotating out of it.
12 gauge finished up that Jotuns and has immediately just been all over this map trying to make their presence known. Seen a couple of Anvil of Dawns already, but it's a dive under the tier 1 tower. Double with the Lawbringer will find a 3rd kill onto Jinxed Q, and now there's trouble for Ultra Lord Bob, but he does have the help of Hunter. This fight diving under the tier 1 tower once more. Home sweet home damage is enough, and Hunter will get the shutdown onto the tier, but 12 gauge will get a pick onto Ultra Lord Bob in response. Both solo laners falling over in that lane after rotations from many team members from both sides.
Yeah, and we all know that the intent was not to give Double more kills, but it does work out a bit in the Baba Yaga's favor, getting an early shutdown gold and money for the team since Double was on a 3-kill streak.
Yeah, definitely a silver lining from that fight over there. Double now finished that Gladiator shield as well as the breastplate of regrowth, so he's going to be zooming around the map, and his damage is going to be even more than it already has been, especially with that bluestone helping out. As the beacon is going to spawn in the next 3 minutes or so, if Double shows up to that fight, it could just give a lot of problems to this Wailing Banshee squad. They have shown that he can bleed, but it's still going to be problematic as Jinx Q is once again trying to turn around some damage here. Dharmic Pillar's used to make space, and it seems like that will fizzle out the rest of the fight. That ultimate will be down for the next minute or so.
And just a fight trying to start up. Both teams just trying to engage in, but not really able to find anything. Using those ultimates, using those abilities very passively and defensively are just going to push both teams away from each other and not really have anything brewing up on that side of the map.
Now, if it wasn't for the fact that the Stygian Beacon is on the map and all of the aesthetic changes, I would almost wonder if we were on patch 10.2 or something of the likes, because it's Book of Toth into Tablet of Destinies on a Tiamat in the mid lane, which is just very early days season 10, a build we saw all the time. Not very much anymore. It seems like Paragon's still liking the feel of that, though.
And Voidon is down in the right-hand lane.
Pressure onto Ultra Lord Bob, but he has the help of Jinxed Q. He will use the Regurgitate and dive under the tower, gets the beads out of 12 gauge, but unable to find the kill on the back end. All the while, Double has just been beating up Ultra Lord Bob, who is tanky enough to make it out of there. With the rotation in from Rushology, there might have been a re-engage, but it seems like they'll just choose to back up for the moment. 12 gauge making it out with a sliver of HP. As I say that, though, that was a blink and a Dharmic Pillars used to try and find something, but Rushology just kind of stood there and was able to eat all of that without any issue. And it's Paragon doing a lot of damage to Jinx Q with that Tiamat first ability, but lots of ultimates and abilities and cooldowns traded, but no blood spilled over there in the solo lane.
Yeah, both teams using pretty much all their ultimates on the side of the Warriors of Albion. The only person that does still have their ultimate, the tiers just now coming back up, was Cornickel in the ADC since he wasn't even in on that fight. As we see this, the gold is about the same, but the XP difference is in the favor of the Warriors of Albion by about 1,500 right now. A good start for them, up 4 kills to two. We're expecting to try and they're going to try and keep pushing this lead using the help of double on that tier to make really good rotations. And we're going to see this first major fight of the game as the teams group up for the Stygian Beacon.
Beacon has indeed spawned, and both teams are here to fight over it. Paragon gets rooted out, but does a good amount of damage to Rushology, who's already very low. Into the backline goes Ultra Lord Bob, and Home Sweet Home gets channeled at the same time that Anvil of Dawn goes up. Dharmic Pillars comes out in low health bars, and 12 gauge will get the first kill of this engagement before 2 Icy turns one back around onto the support. The low health bars for many members here of the Wailing Banshees, who are forced to back up, but they did get 2 picks, so they have the numbers advantage for the time being, stepping back up to the beacon. But Core Nickel and Double are both local and do not want to give this back up, contesting that beacon progress. But lots of damage onto Core Nickel. 2 Icy, though, might have stepped too far forward, uses the beads, but still ends up falling to the hands of Double. But it's a lot of health left for Hunter, who is starting to stack up this prophetic. Could look to try and re-engage. Ultra Lord Bob, though, does not have a lot of health and needs to back up. And Hunter with Jinxed Q and Rushology returning, they will decide to continue this fight, stepping back onto the beacon. 12 gauge has returned as well. Very back and forth so far between these two teams, but it seems like the Warriors are getting the advantage, and with Rushology needing to dash away. Double actually jumping under the tower with that Lawbringer, trying to find something on the back end, but Beacon ends up going the way of the Warriors here.
Yeah, and just an extended fight lasting about a minute and a half there over the Stygian Beacon. More kill, about 2 for 2 there. But the Beacon does go the way of the Warriors of Albion, and that is a big pickup for them. That 1% increased movement speed and that 5% increased structure damage for the rest of the game. They're going to be looking to fight over these future beacons as well, but that is a great start for them.
Definitely exactly what the Warriors were looking for over there. They had to lose a couple lives for it, but they got picks in trade, so it ends up going in their favor. And Double has just been such a menace on this tier, going into the Manticore spikes now. Who do you want to see? Like, who needs to be the one to try and stop what he's able to do on this tier? Now 4-1-2.
In the end, with tier and his passive ability, making it where CC only affects him for 1 second unless it's continued CC, like the knock silence, or if he's standing on the Baba Yaga silence or slows. It's gonna have to be 2 Icy on this ADC and needing to have him get locked down by either, Jinx Q cripple after a Lawbringer, Rushology combo, or, you know, Hunter getting a lucky silence and really just raining in those auto attacks on him into this late game, as he's just too tanky and too quick and moving right now.
Definitely a big problem over there in the solo lane if you're the Wailing Banshees. But, we've seen a lot of damage come through here in the mid lane, actually, as the Dharma Killers and Home Sweet Home are used. Dive into the back as Ultra Lord Bob is here, and Villadon is in the air and will land and get a 3-man stun. Great play out of 12 gauge to make sure that no further blood is spilled underneath that tier 1 tower. Could have gone a lot worse, or the Warriors had their jungler not made such a big, impactful rotation.
Yeah, and a great rotation in by the Wailing Banshees, getting the pick onto Paragon, putting him a little bit behind this Baba Yaga, who's 2-0-3 already in this game, showing why Baba Yaga is one of the strongest mid laners right now, and being so tanky with that already completed prophetic cloak due to her passive the creeping cabin, giving her free stacks throughout.
Yeah, it's just such a good item to get on Baba Yaga. And this slow start for Paragon on the Tiamat might be starting to cost them. They have that Book of Toth stacked up, but the Tablet of Destiny is still going to be a little bit out before that one is finished. So it's going to be a little bit harder for them to try and step up to what this Baba Yaga can do.
Yeah, and even with that Tablet of Destinies, Tiamat being the best god in the game for building up that book, that Tablet of Destinies, having so many ways to poke your opponents, especially with that Child of Creation, Ultimate Ability, having those tornadoes go in and, just having easy ways of poking and setting up to try and build on that item.
100%. Gold still not too different between these squads. Looks like the Wailing Banshees have a slight advantage at the moment, but no big objective beyond the beacon has been looked at quite yet. Gold Fury, Pyromancer, all still available on the map. Who do you think has the advantage around these objective dances and objective fights?
Right now, it is incredibly even between these two teams. But double on this tier doing so much work. Him and 12 gauge able to work off each other in the fights where they've grouped up. It's double providing so much space for the rest of this team. As long as he can keep that pressure and create that space for the Warriors at Albion, I think that it's going to be really hard for the Wailing Banshees to try and fight back into it.
Definitely it will be interesting to find out once these teams decide to start looking at any of these objectives. 17, almost 18 minutes in, usually we've seen at least a Gold Fury or a Pyromancer dropped, but neither team quite confident enough to pull one quite yet for the time being. Instead, just focusing on their own farm game, pushing towards this late game quicker and quicker with each passing moment.
Yeah, and both teams building late game style team comps. You have the Baba Yaga, you have the Nox, you have the Hachiman on the side of the Wailing Banshees, but don't forget that the Warriors of Albion have a Ganesha, have that tier who's just good all game, and Tiamat, who is known as being one of the better late game mages when she's at her prime.
Yeah, if this game ends up going to that true hyper late game stage, you see a lot of intense fights. As you say, both teams very, very good in the late game. Oracles will get dropped here by the Wailing Banshees, so they have that free ward around the Gold Fury pit, which could allow them to maybe want to step up towards that as the solo laners duke it out and slap each other around here over by the Pyromancer.
Yeah, and the Kukulane picking up that mystical mail, having that AoE damage constantly ticking no matter who he's near, very similar to his own Vent Anger ability, just kind of applying more of that just pressure just by existing near enemies.
Yeah, going for that yellow damage number build with that mystical mail pickup. The beacon is spawning here once again, and this time it's the Wailing Banshees who are first on the scene, but the Warriors are around as well. Dharma Pillars and Regurgitate used. Angle of Dawn getting channeled as Mounted Archery does some more damage, but it's the Astral Barrage that will start things off here. Core Nickel getting the kill onto Rushology. The Banshees were the first to step up to the beacon, but the Warriors are the first to spill blood for this objective. It's almost still capped, and that's actually the Aegis coming out of 2 Icy, worried about the engage from 12 gauge. Double is low, and the Bastion will go the way of the Wailing Banshees. Only Rushology falling for their side.
Yeah, both teams losing the supports in that fight. Longfound and Rushology falling. Beacon going the way of the Wailing Banshees, doing very well to try and stand their ground, knowing that they had it very close to getting capped and just had to get them off of the point in for a short moment, are able to take that beacon for themselves. Evening out that difference that those first two beacons can have, neither team having any advantage when it comes to their movement speed or their structure damage right now.
It's all going to be about the third beacon, figure out who will have that upper hand once that one spawns here in the next few minutes. The Relic Dagger is the next item of choice for Longfound. Two very strong glyphs that can come out of that one. Is there one you kind of want to see him build towards over the other?
When you have a Bakasura and a Hachiman on the enemy team, both two gods are extremely auto attack heavy. I would be surprised to not see the Bewitched Dagger picked up. That, item going back to the days of Witchblade with that 25% decrease auto attack speed.
12 gauge taking a lot of damage. Will get hit by the knockoff. Has the Anvil of Dawn and will make it up safely. Should be able to back out of this fight. The Wailing Banshees did everything they could to try and get a pick onto the jungler of the Warriors, but Thor is safe enough to make it out for the time being. I thought we might see the Banshees head over towards the Gold Fury with that TKO onto 12 gauge. It doesn't seem like that's what they're going for. Instead, taking the fight, Dharma Killers and Regurgitate are used, and Ultra Lord Bob will get a kill. Jinx will follow up a kill with onto Longfound, and Home Sweet Home is pouring damage out onto Double here. 12 gauge throws out the hammer, but cannot help anymore to save the life of his solo laner, and Double will fall for only the second time in this game. And out of nowhere, it's a 3 for none, favoring the Wailing Banshees, which opens the door here for them to pull this first Gold Fury of the game.
Yeah, and a great ultimate coming out of Jinx on that block of syrup. Able to keep that Ganesh, keep that team on, keep Double all locked down while his teammates were able to just pour damage into him. The Home Sweet Home, the Nox Silence on top of it. Just too much CC for the Warriors of Albion there. 3 kills going their way, as well as the Gold Fury. A great play by the Wailing Banshees.
Definitely pulling things more in their favor. That brings the gold lead to them up to 4,000. Look at the graph, how quickly it spiked in their direction. And not only gold, but XP. It was a relatively close game, but this is the biggest lead we've seen so far. And it's in favor of this Banshee squad.
Yeah, 4,000 gold and 4,000 XP 22 minutes into the game is not insurmountable, but is a very strong lead. You know, most of it coming from those last 2 fights over the Stygian Beacon and there in the mid lane after the fact going into that Gold Fury.
Amulet of the Stronghold is the pickup for Double here. Not an item we see too often either, especially with how strong some of these other glyphs can be on some of the other items. Do you like this pickup for Double on the tier?
For this tier, since he has that Gladiator shield, you know, getting more power output for the more protections he has, it's no surprise that he's going to go on an item that gives him, you know, additional magical protections, but also some physical proc. You know, you're having that physical proc turn into magical as well. Just a very tanky item for problems such as that Baba Yaga.
Dharma Killers and the Lawbringer are both used, but Longfound will be the first to fall. A Astral Barrage turns around some damage, but it's not quite enough as Mounted Archery charges forward. Good Thor Wall from 12 gauge will break up the chase. And it's just so far the support that falls on the side of the Warriors, but that's allowed this Banshee squad to move back towards this Pyromancer and get their next objective on the game to extend their gold lead even further. They will pick that one up. They have that Runic Bomb now in the pocket of Rushology. Seems like the chase is on. What a Thor dunk double. We get credit for the kill onto Rushology. Set up by 12 gauge on that jungle, in that jungle roll. And great chase down to make sure that the Pyromancer is not free.
Yeah, just very unfortunate timing there by Rushology. Wanting to come back out of 2 Icy to try and set up from, you know, drop the Siphon Darkest, use that Shadow Lock, try and keep Double off of him, but popping back out of the Shadow Step the exact second 12 gauge lands with the Anvil of Dawn, you know, trying to do his best, trying to do what's right to help that ADC, but really getting punished for some awkward timing.
Ultra Lord Bob making me feel a little bit better about when I play solo lane. Unfortunate use of the blink in the fountain, something I have definitely done many times before, but probably won't come back to bite him too hard. Is able to make it back over into that solo lane. Regurgitate though used onto Core Nickel here, who has the Astral Barrage to try and buy time for 12 gauge to rotate over, who's using that Anvil of Dawn. And Jinx Q could be in a bit of trouble, uses the beads and will jump away, but Thor has the hammer, spins to win and does quite a bit of damage, but Jinx Q thinks he could take this fight. Core Nickel reminds him that Rom is very good at the late game and he will get a kill, but 2 Icy will get a kill on the Longfound in the mid lane here as Home Sweet Home is charging forward. Ultra Lord Bob here charging, or leading the charge as the beacon is available, and it seems like the Banshees will be able to pick up this one without any contention.
Yeah, just a great play by the Wailing Banshees, knowing that 2 of them were over on that duo side, knowing that if they apply pressure can get a pick, that Stygian Beacon would be almost completely free for them. Getting the pick onto Longfound, getting that Stygian Beacon, and immediately rushing over here towards Gold Fury. Although, a little bit interesting choice not to have your Baba Yaga of Hunter or Ultra Lord Bob here. You trying to, kind of feign like you're going for it, hoping that there's no resistance. But that Warriors of Albion squad kind of lurking there, able to make the Wailing Banshees back off of that gold fury.
Yeah, just showing face enough to make the Banshees back away for the time being. They'll just reset, kind of farm out the jungle camps that have respawned in the meantime. But the Titans are unleashed now and will be marching down this solo lane, which is, we've seen a lot of different play styles of how to interact with these Titans as they start marching down. Some teams like to group up and push with them. Sometimes teams like to use them as a distraction to pick up a different objective. With the Banshees in the lead here, it's kind of their choice. What direction do you want to see them go here?
Considering that these Titans are in the solo lane, using it as a distraction is not the best, knowing that they're on the fire giant side of the map. So I'm expecting to see both teams grouping up the fight with them here. And with that, Jinx trying to lurk in behind on this Bakasura.
Is on quite the flank. Titan for the Banshee starting to take a bit of damage, but the flank has been spotted out by Double, who forces out the Bakasura here at the Titan fight. Lots of damage going on to Rushology, who needs to dash away. A very split engagement, but it's a blink in and a good two-man knockup from the Kukulkan. But Ultra Lord Bob is taking so much damage, needs this transformation, and will get it. Dharma Killers and the Astral Barrage will not find any kills, but the Anvil of Dawn lands in the backline, and 12 gauge will. Starting things off with a kill onto Rushology. And it's all of the sudden the Warriors who are the ones pushing, the Warriors who are the ones with the advantage, and they'll take out the Titan of the Wailing Banshees and the tier 1 tower to boot.
Yeah, as you saw there, Kukulkan on this Ultra Lord Bob trying to teleport back in, but the tower will go down a little bit too fast. This Warriors Albion team grouping up so well, using their Titan, living just a little bit longer than the Wailing Banshees as a bit of a distraction for 12 gauge and Double just to run in at them. And with Nickel just raining shots in on CC targets.
12 gauge has had such good ultimates in this game. Does not have the player damage that you might expect, but is 3-0-4, just looking so good on this Thor. Definitely, at least in my opinion, the kind of the leading force here alongside Double for this Warrior squad.
Yeah, 12 gauge doing so well, is currently 3-0-4, has not died on that Thor yet. Him and Double working so well in sync, and now a fight's getting started up here.
Ultra Lord Bob once again very low in the backline. Lawbringer through, splits the fight as well as the Dharma Killers, but Home Sweet Home is available. Anvil of Dawn lands. All this over a Pyromancer, but no blood spilled quite yet. Seems like they will just continue this dance. Rushology gets some good CC onto Double, who takes a lot of HP, is stuck in this Pyromancer pit and is on the run now, has the dash to get out. Mounted Archer will not be able to catch him, but instead the focus is now going to be on Paragon as well. Low health bars for Longfound, low health bars for everybody on the Warriors of Albion, and 2 Icy will get a pick onto the support. Astral Barrage turns around some damage onto 2 Icy and Rushology, but will not be enough to get the pick. The pings coming out. Pyromancer seems to be the call for this Banshees team, and they will be able to get it without too much contention unless Paragon can do something miraculous here. Unable to steal that away, and another Runic Bomb will go the way of the Banshees.
Yeah, big fights going this way. Both teams knowing that they have to group up as 5 to do anything. Right now, neither team showing any weaknesses really, besides in those, each team having their supports dying quite a lot, giving their lives to set up the team, doing great work in that regard, but is both of them dying quite a lot and giving a lot of XP and gold to the enemy teams throughout this game.
Production showing us how these support or these starter items have all been upgraded on the side of the Wailing Banshees, using that gold lead and the experience lead to get big power spikes. The alternate timeline is the choice for Hunter, as the Gold Fury will end up going the way of the Wailing Banshees. Not the upgrade path we see most of the time, but does add a bit of tankiness. Fire Giant, though, might get pulled here by the Warriors after they hear the Gold Fury getting dropped. You say, all right, we'll take that one. You can have that one. We'll take the bigger one on the right side of the map, and it's really Ultra Lord Bob and Jinx, the only ones super local to try and stop this. It will be enough though, and they will leash the fire. So Primal Fury going the way of the Banshees without anything taken in return.
Yeah, whereas Albion just buying up a little bit more than they can chew, going for that fire giant. I think not realizing that that is enhanced fire giant. We are past the 30-minute mark, not able to shred it and kill it nearly as fast as they thought they could because of that.
Definitely a lot harder once it ticks over to its enhanced form. They are still around here on this side of the map. 32 minutes in, as you said, Fire Giant is the most important thing currently up on the map right now. So both of these teams will be looking to try and gain the advantage to be able to start this one off right for their siege.
And both teams, backing, buying their items, getting as much word coverage as they can. But right now, whereas at Albion definitely have the better word coverage on the actual fire giant itself and on their side of the map, knowing that there is no counter wards for the Wailing Banshees on their side at all with all those sentry wards.
A great vision coming out of the Warriors here. They should be able to know exactly where the Wailing Banshees are. This Rushology just is being annoying on this Nox, trying to set up for Hunter on the Baba Yaga. Ultra Lord Bob charging forward here, but it's Lawbringer over the back with the Dharmic Pillars to try and kick off this fight. And Anvil of Dawn lands as well. Hunter is under so much pressure, but has the home sweet home and is tanky on this Baba Yaga, pouring out damage. And 2 Icy will get a kill before 12 gauge returns one onto Ultra Lord Bob. Low health bars, and Hunter will get another one onto 12 gauge, shutting down the Thor. And now it's Ron who's in a lot of trouble. Cornicle will get one before falling to this Baba Yaga as well. And Jinxed Q gets another kill onto Longfound. It's just Paragon left trying to get the back off, but Jinx Q is here. Jinx Q will get the kill and live with a sliver of HP. And that's a deicide. The Wailing Banshees might only have 3 left, but there is no one standing on the side of the Warriors.
And just a great fight by the Wailing Banshees, doing so well to use that CC, use their ability to lock down their opponents so effectively. And that Baba Yaga, we saw that Thor of 12 gauge and double both going in on this Baba Yaga, underestimating the fact that she has prophetic cloak and alternate timeline, giving one of those few items that gives you both power and protections, able to keep her alive. Kind of missed target there, I think. Going for the person that is one of the tankiest on the team, and rather than going for, this Hachiman of 2 Icy.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter tanking up that they were the one who was tanking up the Phoenix as it was dropped, because this Baba Yaga is just so hard to kill, and you add in the shield that comes from the home sweet home. It's gonna take a lot more to put Hunter in a really bad spot. On the other side, though, Paragon going with this Typhon's Fang. This is a very interesting build. What exactly, with everything that's going on here for this Tiamat, is this a choice that's gonna, is it gonna work out? Are we just not late game enough? I'm trying to wrap my brain around it.
It's quite the crazy build, having the flat pin from Book of Thoth, having true damage on the Tablet of Destinies, having the Soul Reaver to try and increase that true damage either by the Soul Reaver itself or the Tablet of Destinies being based off of your mana. And, Chrono Spin, so you're activating his abilities when Typhon's Fang, giving you that 20% pin after the recent changes on that item. It's a crazy build, and you'll notice that even the relic slots of this TMI not going the traditional Aegis, but picking up a fortified shell instead.
Aragon is just cooking right now on the Tiamat. Not working out as best as it could, but still not working out too badly. Top or second overall on the damage charge top for their team. Definitely putting in work on this mid lane pick. Fire Giant, though, was never taken after that back and forth fight. So both teams are still just kind of dancing around that objective. But there are fire minions that are pouring down the mid lane. At least it seems like it's easy for the Warriors to defend that.
Yeah, and the Wailing Banshee's going to try and use those fire minis in the mid wave as a bit of a distraction for the Warriors at Albion, so they can maybe try and pick up this fire giant, but not really knowing that there's a sentry ward still on the top right side of the fire giant, even though they have it sentry ward themselves as well.
It's always a battle for vision here at the higher levels of Comp Smite. And it's a blink in from Ultra Lord Bob to start things off. Gets a good knockup, will transform in a moment, but gets silenced out. Is taking so much damage. The Dharmic Pillars slows down this engage from the Wailing Banshees. And Anvil of Dawn off, they're not used to go in, but still pulls out the mounted archery from this Hachiman to Icy, not wanting to get jumped on. And Longfound once again takes a lot of damage, but so does Rushology, who's still walking forward. Needs to be a little bit careful. Does have the safety of the Nox Dash to make it back away from this fight. Hunter leading the charge now towards this left side of the map. Do you think that they could pull this Oni Fury without losing the Fire Giant in trade?
Considering the fact that they do have the sentry ward on this fire giant, Ultra Lord Bob, they're also still being there. They're gonna know that this Warriors of Albion team is over at the fire giant, chasing Ultra Lord Bob right now, knowing that they can't be doing it. They have a opportunity here to get this Oni Fury, but the Warriors of Albion, this 12 gauge will steal it away.
And Cornickel will get the kill onto Ultra Lord Bob. Disaster for the Wailing Banshees, not getting either of the things they were looking for, and Rushology's in trouble under the tower as well. 12 gauge though just walked up and stole that Oni Fury right in front of multiple members of the Banshees.
Yeah, to Icy using all of his health bar to try and full commit that Gold Fury, try and get it away, but 12K just walks up, Milner's attunement, takes it for himself, and just walks away, not really having the secure between that Baba Yaga and that Hachiman to really try and guarantee that Gold Fury, force a 50-50 it, and will get taken away from him.
We've been dancing around this Fire Giant and Fury for long enough that the mid lane Phoenix has respawned for the Warriors of Albion, and so they don't have to worry about trying to defend from fire waves. And in fact, it's the only wave left that's putting all the pressure towards the Wailing Banshees. Fire Giant is started up here by the Warriors. A good Lawbringer and Fearless combo will do a lot of damage to Rushology, but Regurgitate and the Dharmic Pillars come out. Jinx Q forced to leap away, mounted archery for the escape as well. Anvil of Dawn is up in the air and he will up down, but takes so much damage. 12 gauge, unable to continue in this fight. And now it's the Warriors who are on the run. Ultra Lord Bob is just trying to get anything he can. Jumps into 3. He gets silenced out by the Ganesh Paragon, very low, but has a lot of peel. And Ultra Lord Bob is trying to continue this chase, but is taking quite a bit of damage through the wall from Paragon. Longfound very low, and 2 Icy will finish off that kill. But look at a 2-man Fearless from Double will get him a kill as well. The damage onto Hunter with Lawbringer. Double is doing absolutely everything in this fight. Another 2-man Fearless. Hunter so low, but able to make it out. Jinx Q trying to turn something back around will get a double kill himself before falling to 12 gauge. And after a back and forth fight, it's Solo and mid left for the Banshees, and Solo and jungle left for the Warriors.
And this double on this tier doing so much work, getting a double person pull into that Child of Creation ultimate from the Tiamat over the wall, able to take out Rushology and 2 Icy throughout that fight with the help of his team. And Jinx, double trying to set up, try and get that first kill on the Hunter, who's still the only one unkilled in this game, will wind up losing both of his carries in the backline from Jinx Q, kind of jumping into the backline, sacrificing himself to take both of them out.
Yeah, there's just so much burst coming out of Jinx Q on this Bakasura, and as a jungler, most of the time you are totally fine trading your life for 2 kills. It ends up being a fairly even fight by the end. Neither team able to get anything off the back of it, save the Pyromancer that Warriors were able to pick up in their favor. But this Fire Giant is still standing. This Fire Giant that we've been dancing around for what seems like quite some time now. Neither team has been able to get enough of an advantage to pull it.
Yeah, both teams dancing around this Fire Giant for roughly the last 15 minutes now. both sides doing very well, getting some picks, but never having quite enough to make it happen. Both these teams are incredibly equal, and we're seeing a absolute bloodbath and bludgeoning between these two teams that one of them's gonna have to get it done and get some picks and keep themselves alive in order to get this job done.
Yeah, definitely need to see which team can get a little bit of a cleaner fight, as Jinx Q was on the split push, but his might get collapsed upon. Bakasura mobile enough to make it over the wall safely for the time being. A mid lane fight, though, could be brewing, especially with Baba Yaga here in for Hunter, trying to find something. Also, Lord Bob is just constantly in the back line, but it's a blink in and a regurgitate from Jinx Q to kick things off. The Dark Pillars and the Lawbringer uses Anvilodon and Astral Barrage are used, and 12 gauge blows up Jinx Q. So much damage coming out of this Thor. Double will get a kill onto 2 Icy, as Paragon gets a kill onto Ultra Lord Bob, as well as just Rushology and Hunter. And Rushology is not quite out of here yet, will fall. Double kill to 12 gauge. It's Hunter versus the world. You just asked for a clean fight out of one of these teams, and the Warriors responded.
Yeah, doing it almost off instinct, off hearing my words themselves. Killing everyone but Hunter. Hunter's still at full HP after that fight. Ignoring that Baba Yaga, knowing she's tanky, knowing that she does have a lot of damage. Just kind of knowing, hey, we're not going to kill her unless the rest of them are down. So they just take out the other 4. They're going to back up, get healed up, and they're going to pick up this EFG while the rest of the Wailing Banshees is down, with only Hunter able to try and defend this.
Now 15 seconds left on the nearest respawn of Jinxed Q, now down to 10. So if the Warriors are going to try and do this without contention, it's going to need to be relatively quick, because there are respawns starting to come through. They're going to start it up now with Longsound stepping into the pit. It seems like Hunter does not want to lose his life trying to contest it. So this EFG, after a back and forth 20-minute dance almost, will go the way of the Warriors of Albion. Nobody from the Banshees able to step up to it. So be able to secure this and start to properly siege for the first time in this game. How do you like the siege defense coming out of the Wailing Banshees?
The Wailing Banshees have a lot of siege defense, having that Bakasura to try and lock down someone if they have beats us down. But unfortunately, by the time that they get to these birds, all of the set of beads are going to be back up. The only persons whose beads are not up is actually the tier of double. And so it's going to be really hard for this team of Wailing Banshees to defend, knowing that they can just get ran at, even through Siphon Darkness, Shadow Lock, through Regurgitate, and more. So they have a very resilient team that can defend very well, but it is going to be a struggle for them. And this Tiamat, though, selling their starter item, not going either of the upgrades for that conduit gem, and going to pick up a Spirit Desolation as the last item.
Definitely an interesting choice. I was wondering why that gem had not been upgraded yet. Now I have that reason, not even wanting to get Archmages or any upgrade there. It's an interesting call. This Tiamat is definitely still cooking with the build. It looks like sieging could be happening here in just a matter of moments. It's only this left lane that's been pushed in, so there won't be too much of a split push. It looks like 12 gauge going to try and remedy that for the moment, which leaves just 4 members of the Warriors over here on this side of the map to try and siege this out. Won't be able to do it with this first wave, but at least making sure that the Wailing Banshees have nowhere else they can go except for under this Phoenix.
Yeah, and this is going to be a full 5-man fight over this duo-side bird. A Paragon, maybe knowing something we don't, doing some absolute work on this Tiamat with this Tablet of Destiny that looks so good.
Link in and the Lawbringer into the backline here for double, as the Phoenix goes down to half the 2. Icy will get the kill onto the tier. Home Sweet Home used in Dark Pillars as well, but Rushology will get a kill onto 12 gauge mounted archery to chase out even more damage. And there's lots of little health bars for the Warriors who are on the run. Rushology trying to find more, but that is a successful defense partially from the Wailing Banshees. They do lose that all-important left side Phoenix, the hardest one to defend, but they at least take Fire Giant off of the waist of two members without losing anybody in trade.
And can we just talk about the fact that double and 12 gauge, they wanted this Baba Yaga of Hunter dead. They put everything they had, the Anvilodon, the Lawbringer, and so much more into him. But that starter item choice, that alternate timeline, now going on that 6 minute cooldown, being popped, and Hunter being able to get out from the pill from Rushology, managing to keep him alive, not giving them the shutdown gold, and giving them their best defender on this team of the Wailing Banshees.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like Hunter is unkillable. He won't have that alternate timeline second life, as you mentioned, for the next 6 minutes. But I mean, they've time and time again have tried to jump on him, and it just hasn't been enough. As the pause is finished here, and we hop back into the action. I just, what do they do against Hunter, who just is always able to live through any engagement?
I think, as we saw with the one fight the Warriors of Albion won, is ignore them. You take out the other four, and there's only so much Hunter can do. If your entire team is dead and you're facing down five, how are you going to be able to defend everything? And I think that's what the Warriors of Albion need to do. The major fight that they won, and in order to get that EFG in the first place, was through that process.
Seems like the Banshees want to try and siege themselves, but Dharmic Pillars will force them back. The Phoenix still standing, and Ultra Lord Bob will actually fall to Paragon there. So bit of maybe of an overextension. The Banshees got those 2 picks, but there's still EFG on the remaining 3 members. It wasn't enough to get them the Phoenix, trading out their solo laner as well. And it looks like the Warriors are still on the chase, and Cornicle will get a kill onto Rushology. Disaster here for the Banshees. They cannot afford to lose anymore, because it could be really problematic should the Warriors try and go for an end with the numbers advantage they now have.
Yeah, and now they're pushing down a 5v3. One bird is down. Warriors of Albion are going to look to end this game here.
Jinx Q blinks in, but unable to find anything. Dharmic Pillars up and out again as Lawbringer went into the backline. Hunter still alive on that right side of the map, but the mid Phoenix will fall, and into the throne room go the Warriors. Up into Anvilodon goes 12 gauge as the damage starts pouring through onto the Titan. The Titan just melting and will end up falling. The Warriors take game 1 here over the Wailing Banshees.
Yeah, in a completely back and forth game, but gonna go the way of the Warriors of Albion. The Wailing Banshees getting a little bit too aggressive there, being a little bit too greedy, losing one, then losing another due to trying to go for that mid Phoenix, going to get punished and gonna wind up losing that game, even with a mid laner that didn't die at all that game, are gonna, wind up losing that game.
Yeah, Hunter just unable to get killed there at all in the game, but it wasn't enough. And Paragon with the build that I wouldn't say I've been harping on it, but I've definitely been looking at it a lot because it's not something that I'm used to. Did incredible on the Tiamat, was doing so much damage, setting up so much for their squad. Yeah, like you said, maybe they just know something that we don't.
Yeah, and A Paragon, 12K and double looking so good that game. And don't forget about Core Nickel as well, going 5-2 and 11 himself. The front line of this Warriors of Albion squad looking so great. You know, Longfound may have been throwing away his life many times, but he was setting up consistently for his team. You look at that Ganesh stat line, you see it 0, 9, and 12, but there was so many times that he was sacrificing himself to get a Paragon, to get Cornicle out of fights, or to set up kills for double and 12 gauge. And a Paragon and Cornicle, and it's one of those things where it may look rough, but he was doing his job consistently throughout that game. And that's why they were able to get that one done.
Just great overall team play from the Warriors of Albion there in game 1, and that will get them the dub, going up 1-0 in the set. We're going to go to a quick break, but make sure you don't go anywhere, because we're going to find out if the Warriors can take the 2-0 here, or if the Wailing Banshees can draft a good comp and bounce back to push us to a game 3. We'll be back in just a few moments. And welcome back, everybody, to this Sparta division matchup between the Wailing Banshees and the Warriors of Albion. If you missed game one, the Warriors were able to go up 1-0 in the set after a bit of an overextension led to a good, clean team fight win and the Titan death in favor of the Warriors. And as we get ready to move into picks and bans for game two, what do you want to see out of this Wailing Banshee squad to try and mix up what happened and try to get the dub here?
Well, they're already taking action on that, banning away doubles tier, not wanting him to be able to go back to that, as it was a major problem with him getting into the backlines of the Wailing Banshee squad and just putting in so much work on that.
Yeah, double looked so good on that tier. I like that they're already respect banning that one away, and they'll follow it up with the Sun Wukong, really focusing out that solo lane so far. But on the other side, will be the Kali and the Raven who are taken off the board.
Yeah, trying to ban out two Icy, make sure that those junglers are not going to be that big of a problem. Getting rid of the Ravana, getting rid of the Kali, two incredibly potent junglers right now, and Ravana being so strong, even with that defensive build, able to even play solo as well.
The Banshees choose to take away this Baba Yaga that Hunter went undying on in game one. Doesn't seem like they want to prioritize it early, and they definitely don't want it in the hands of Paragon on the other side, so they take that one away. And the final ban for the Warriors is going to be the Thor to take that one off the board, even though 12 gauge looked so good on it in the first game.
Yeah, no surprise there. Not wanting your opponents to be able to get your power picks if you pick one or the other. Although, as well as Hunter played on that Baba Yaga and them being first pick is an interesting choice to ban that out and not try and force the Warriors of Albion to kind of respect ban that or let something else very powerful through for them.
One thing that did make it through picks and bans is the Jormungandr, and it will be hovered here and locked in by this Wailing Banshees squad. Such a strong solo laner at the moment. The Wailing Banshees have decided to pick up first.
Yeah, Jormungandr being very potent in this early game, having that breath attack that does so much damage and can't really be dealt with early gives him some very good clear and a whole lot of pressure. And no surprise that with his ability to get into fights and get out safely with the World Serpent, that he is a strong pick in the game right now, is going to be picked up first. And, I can't really say I'm surprised with what was left up on the table that they are going to pick it up.
Yeah, it seems like that's what they wanted to prioritize over something like the Baba Yaga. So kind of forcing the Warriors to let that one through if they
Tiamat.
didn't want to see the Thor. But the Warriors will respond with the Tiamat once again for Paragon, whose interesting build path ended up working out very well. Top damage in the lobby, I believe, for game one. So I don't not mind at all seeing them pick that up once again to hand it back to Paragon. But the Atlas is a bit interesting to me. What is this going to bring for the Warrior squad?
Rom.
Atlas is a great god, that gamma ray burst ultimate shredding prots and doing quite a bit of damage. Although I do find the Atlas a weird and kind of interesting pick considering that that you're into Jormungandr who cannot be picked up by Atlas.
Vaticarus.
Yeah, especially picking it up so early in the draft. I feel like there was a lot of other priority picks left available, much like the Marticarus and the Rom, that will be locked in here for the Wailing Banshees, solidifying their mid and ADCs here in the top three. There's two of the best hunters in the game right now, and they're both on the same side for the Banshees.
And this giving the Wailing Banshees a very aggressive team comp that can
Hachiman.
do objectives very well, having that double ADC with that Jormungandr is going to be a great lineup so far for them. Although, not getting the number one ADC right now, are going to let the Hachi get picked up by Core Nickel to Icy, really wanting that Rama instead.
Nickel looked good on the ROM in the first game, so maybe a combination of wanting it for their side and to take it out of the hands of the ADC of the Warriors. As we move to phase two of bans here, It's the Bakasura first taken away by this warrior squad, followed by the Awelish, while the first ban for the Banshees is going to be that Achilles.
Yeah, no surprise yet again on the Achilles band. Just getting recent buffs and having that execute threshold increased. And no surprise on the Bakasura either. Jinx Q doing a great job on it and changing the way of so many fights that could have gone the way of the Warriors much sooner. But what really is a kind of spicy ban, I guess you could say, is that a Wheelix. You know, only person on the side of the Warriors right now having a jump at all is Tiamat whenever she's going from flying stance down to her ground stance. And but I guess a concern for that Jormungandr submerge and the World Serpent ultimate potentially knocking people up being a good follow up. And since they just locked in the Nike,
Nike.
would have been a counter to some of the picks that they're planning on going.
Yeah, that's what I think it's got to be. Is the last two picks they want to lock in here must have jumps combined with the knockups that will come out of Jormungandr. It's five potential jungle bans though coming out of the Warriors. Raven and Thor can flex into solo, but they are really focusing out Jinxed Q, pushing him further into the God pool. But Erlong Shen is the hover for him right now in the jungle. And Erlong Shen's one of the top junglers right now in this meta. So even with all the bans, he's still going to be able to pick something up that's going to feel very strong in that jungle role.
Yeah, but more so trying to push Jinx Q off of his mains. Kali being one of his favorite gods in the game, as well as being incredibly strong right now. Of course they're going to ban that out and forcing Jinx to go deeper and deeper into his god pool. Something I have been seeing teams do more and more when playing against Jinxio is just banning him out and forcing him onto these picks that he might not have as much experience on.
Erlong Shen.
It's
Ganesh.
definitely a good tactic with how strong Jinx Q can be in the jungle position. And the Banshees will wind or round out their draft with Rushology on the Ganesh as their final lock in. So taking the Ganesh for themselves this time, keeping it out of the hands of Longfound.
Yeah, not wanting those dormant pillars and that own possibilities, as well as to remove obstacles, trying to lock people down, keeping it for themselves, trying to do something with it. You know, it's interesting to see that as much struggle as Longfound had during the early game and through some of that game, that they are going to take it for themselves.
As we wait to see what this Warriors team will draft for their last position, still needing that jungle role. How do you like the full 5 man draft of the Wailing Banshees that they've locked in?
I really like this Wailing Banshee squad.
Ratatosker.
You have the Jormungandr, you have the Marticarus, you have Rama, you have Erlong Shin, and a Ganesh. You have so much ability to lock people down. You have the pin, you have the 9 turns blessing, you have remove obstacles, the Dharmic pillars. You also have the World Serpent. You have so much zoning tools as well as lockdown tools to really make two Icy on this Rama and Hunter on this Marticarus be able to pop off.
Lots of safety going to be afforded to these backliners should things go to plan. With the Ratatosker locked in for 12 gauge on the side of the Warriors, you can now look at their full 5 man draft. Do you think their dive potential with this Nike, the Rat, and even the Atlas is going to be enough to get through the front line and setup that this Wailing Banshee squad has?
I think that, it's going to be the old adage of dive versus defend the squishies. And right now, I'm leaning towards the dive composition. One of the gods that you didn't mention is Tiamat. Mainly seen as a mortar mage that stays in the back line, does tons of poke with that Book of Thoth, with that Tablet of Destinies, as you saw that he did in the game number one. But at the same time, Tiamat does have that ground stance, has that ability to jump in, use that ultimate for each person she hits. She gets extra prots, middies, and more. So it's going to be interesting to see just how hard this dive composition is going to be for the Wailing Banshees to deal with.
Definitely a lot of pressure can come out of this Warriors squad should they time their dive together correctly. We already saw in game one that double and 12 gauge are very much in sync with their ability to dive the back line. And while it will be a different pairing of gods, Ratatosker and Nike can definitely get the job done just the same.
Yeah, and just like before, it's going to be them two diving into the back line, trying to wreak as much havoc as possible. And an interesting pickup early on is this Jormungandr picking up the Tainted Steel to kind of try and mitigate some of the healing that this Warriors Albion team might have.
Yeah, Tainted Steel definitely feels good on Jormungandr, and even if there isn't like a dedicated healer on the side of the warrior, still good to shut down any sort of self-sustain that these gods might have. And the Sunder is already picked up by Rushology, such a good counter on its own against what Double is going to be able to do on this Nike.
Yeah, I know. Surprised that that spear is going to be picked up. Try and mitigate that shield from that Sentinel of Zeus ultimate of double, as well as giving you the ability to completely blow up a target whenever they dive in on you, stripping protections and making it so your team can kill them much easier.
Even with the nerfs to Sunder on that bonus balance patch, it still feels so good into a lot of what this warrior squad has with the shell and the Nike. So we'll have to see how well Rushology can use it to try and swing the fights in their favor. Is there anything else kind of builds wise that you're noticing here that's worth mentioning?
Long found picking up this war flag here early on into this game, an item that some supports have been picking up recently, picking it up, using it for the early game, and even some of them choosing to sell it late game for a different item, using it for its early stats rather than its upgrades. Well, some kind of fluctuating on if they take it or not, as well as a Paragon not going the conduit gem this time. Maybe a potential mistake that he did in the first game is going to pick up the Sands of Time into that first tier book this time.
That's a good point. It could have been the reason why we didn't see the upgrade. Wanted the cooldown from Spirit Desolation because was unable to get it from that conduit gem. Maybe wanting to switch things up here with the Sands of Time instead. And War Flag, I like this pickup on the Atlas. I feel like Atlas can really run at people, really be aggressive, and War Flag kind of allows the support to do that with much more ease, that additional movement speed that can come from it. And when you upgrade it to War Banner, it just makes it that much better.
Yeah, and we'll have to see whether he chooses to go for the op for that war banner and those upgrades of that war flag later into this game, or if he decides to sell it. Because I know that is a distinction that a lot of people are making, because I know some are wanting to keep it and use its early game and try and turn it into something late, while others are getting rid of it for something else.
Will be interesting to see what decision Longfound decides to make with that starter item as Jinx Q tries to get aggressive here in the mid lane, just finding some poke wherever possible. And in the solo lane, it looks like Ultra Lord Bob, as expected, has all the pressure, all the poke onto Double, who's already going to be forced to back here just 2 minutes into the game. Will cancel it, decide to stay for the wave. But this Jormungandr is just so hard to deal with in that short lane.
Yeah, Jormungandr being one of those guys that, for a long while really was not picked up, was said that wasn't very good, but really exploding back onto the scene with a lot of the changes recently.
Definitely, seems like he came almost out of nowhere, but just is become such a prominent feature in the solo lane. In the dual lane over here, though, looks like this ROM has enough lane pressure to try and, be the ones that are getting the poke damage, be the ones who are being aggressive, even paired up with a Ganesh who doesn't necessarily have the best early game.
Yeah, but even with that Ganesh, you have so much peel with the removed obstacles, and if he gets a grab, then it could be a lot of damage.
Speaking of a lot of damage, it's a blink in, and Ultra Lord Bob will get the first blood of game number 2 on the Jormungandr. Double just wanted to try and help defend his own blue buff, but was unsuccessful. Blue buff and the kill going the way of the Wailing Banshees.
Yeah, and unfortunately there for Double, wanting to come back in, really wanting to assist 12 gauge there and try and fend off this Jormungandr, not knowing that the blink was about to come through from Jinx Q. Is going to put him in a bad spot and get him to heal up.
Rotation from Hunter here on the Marticarus. Death from above does so much damage to Longfound as they drop the purple buff invade in favor of the kill, but that was safe enough to make it out. Paragon has rotated into this fight as well, and now it could be trouble for Rushology. He dashes away on the Ganesh, and Paragon takes so much damage in trade. Low health bars, though, still. More Rushology to blink in, and the Acorn stun for 12 gauge will return the first kill in favor of the Warriors. That's the beads coming out of 2 Icy, but up into the through the Cosmos goes this Ratatosker. Will dive under the tower, and splat goes Hunter, falling. 2 Icy will at least turn that kill around. Goes up into the Astral Barrage, trying to find the snipes. Last one, not on the mark. Longfound will make it out with a sliver of HP. It's been so scrappy over here in the dual lane, and Jinx Q trying to continue that trend with an engage here on to poor Nickel. But Atlas is still around. 9 turns Blessing will get the beads. Just a little bit more damage is all that's required, but it's not enough. Both members of the dual lane for the Warriors of Albion will make it out safely, assuming that they actually do leave. With a rotation though from 12 gauge and Paragon, could be a bit of a re-engage. It seems like with Jinx Q getting out, Rushology should be able to walk away on the Ganesh.
And I just want to say, you know, Longfound on this Atlas still lurking through all of this. You know, this man has been at like 4 HP for all of this.
Rushology not able to make it out, making me eat my words as he falls there to 12 gauge. Now 2 Icy's in trouble as it's a dive under the tower from Paragon, and Longfound will get the kill over the wall. Jinx Q will return it onto Paragon, but Longfound might have just overstayed here, and Hunter will get the kill onto him. Out of nowhere, there is 4 kills on either side, 8 kills total, just 5 minutes into this game.
Both teams being so scrappy, wanting to fight, trying to get this dual lane ahead. And as I was about to say, you know, Longfound doing so much in that fight while at a quarter HP, you know, using the shell early on to keep himself alive, coming back in, setting up for 12 gauge and that double kill, and still lurking while at an 1/8 of HP. Yeah, sure, he dies, but he does pick up a kill onto that ADC of 2 Icy, and really, you know, was pivotal in that fight for the Warriors, even though he was out of it and should have been out of it for the entire fight. But still, the stat line is going the way of the Wailing Banshees, as it's 1,000 XP and 1,000 gold their way through all of that chaos.
Yeah, they somehow managed to stay on top after a very back and forth and extended fight over here in the dual lane. But 12 gauge being 3-1 on the Ratatosker now. It's got to be scary if you're the Wailing Banshees. Ratatosker, once he gets that Acorn upgrade online, which 12 gauge has, becomes one of the biggest threats on the map, and is even able to get tier 2 of the Transcendence. Once he has that stacked up, it's going to be hard to do anything against this Ratatosker.
You know, he is a little bit behind on gold and XP, even still with those 3 kills. You know, this Erlong up 2 levels on this Ratatosker already. You know, looking like, you know, this Rat trying to fight a little bit too much, not getting his farm. And Jinx, you know, sure, he's making these rotations, but he is also farming like nobody's business.
Yeah, I completely slipped my vision there. Jinx Q has just been doing so much farming. Level 9 and gets the 9 turns blessing. Death from above and Dharmic Pillars are used as Gamma Ray Burst is charging up. Low health bars for Longfound, and he will fall to 2 Icy, but up through the Cosmos being used here. Ratatosker looking where to land. 12 gauge trying to decide if he wants to continue this fight, and will end up just backing away. The Wailing Banshees still looking for a bit more. Will find this green buff invade. Once again, it's Ultra Lord Bob with all the pressure over here in the solo lane. Gonna look for another blue buff invade. 12 gauge is nearby though. We'll try to help defend this. Ultra Lord Bob playing the safe game for the time being, lurking underneath. Will get the knock up onto the buff and get the smalls at least, but with rotation in from Longfound, the ultimate needing to be used there. World Serpent is so safe, and Ultra Lord Bob will be able to make it out and start up his own blue buff instead.
Yeah, and getting so close to stealing that away from double on that Nike. But with the three-man rotation, having long pound and 12 gauge there, he is not able to strip it away, having forced to use that World Serpent ult, to get out of that chaos. But one thing I will mention though is this Atlas may not be able to pull this Jormungandr with the knockup, but we do have to remember Jormungandr's passive immovable. Every time that he would be hit with a knockup or a pull or anything like that, he does have a 5% increased damage taken. So that could be something that they go into with this Atlas trying to pull him up whenever he comes in. That way the rest of the team can gun him down faster.
Definitely something to keep in mind wherever Ultra Lord Bob goes, to know that he will be taking more damage once that passive gets activated. Hunter trying to steal away these mid harpies and does enough to at least force a leash from Paragon, but Longfound is over here as well to try to make sure that that experience goes the way of his mid laner. Taking a look at where some of these builds are going for the time being, pretty standard things. We are seeing the same build coming out of Paragon, which I suppose is standard for his Tiamat now that we've seen it in game one.
Yeah, no surprise that he's trying to go back to that, showing that it does work in game number one and gonna go back to it. A Paragon during the start of this season 10 was an absolute menace on this Tiamat, doing so well on it. And, saying that, hey, I can still play this Tiamat, it is still viable, even with the Book of Thoth and the Tablet of Destiny's nerfs, and I'm still going to run it.
Jinx Q still has this 2-level lead over 12 gauge. Even with those kills, it's just not been enough. And Jinx Q has been a part of 4 of the 5 kills for the Wailing Banshees, so that's definitely helping his experience as well. But he's got that Golden Blade online, working into either an Executioner's or a Kin size. This Erlong Shen is going to be absolutely swinging once he gets that next item finished.
Yeah, and Erlong Shen, being one of those gods that can really get in your face, do so much damage with that 9 turns blessing into the spot weakness and the pen. And don't forget that he has the transformations of the minx and the turtle that can do so much.
Definitely such an impactful god out of the jungler. And as the characters get stopped in the stasis mode, start dancing in the lane, this is a bit of time to take a breather and look at some of the other builds who hop back into the action relatively quickly. Jormungandr's gone for that Glad Shield following the Conduit gem. Pretty standard from what we've seen so far, but now that he's got both of those online, it's going to be even more problematic, though he is forced away. Uses that World Serpent, had a rotation from both Paragon and 12 gauge, was able to make it out safely.
Yeah, and picking up that Crunchman and that Glad Shield, already having that 30% cooldown already on this Jormungandr, he is looking to get in, be able to get out consistently. And many times, this ultimate can get baited out, but it won't matter when he can get it back up majority of the time before the next fight anyway.
That's definitely a big pickup for the Jormungandr. The beacon is going to be spawning here in just over 10 seconds. You can already see groupings from both teams. Double has made his way into the mid lane. Seems like once again the beacon's going to get high prioritization.
Yeah, with a permanent buff in the game, movement speed is key and objective damage. It's no surprise that they're really trying to make these beacons important and make them a priority as this fight is getting picked up here in mid.
Jinx Q was engaged upon, but still around half HP, returned just as much to 12 gauge. Meanwhile, in the beacon, Gamma Ray Burst getting charged up as his Ultra Lord Bob, who's leading the charge here around this fight. Beacon starting to get picked up here by the warriors, but the Dharma Pillars and Death from Above will do so much damage and force them away rather quickly. World Serpent used as well, does hit multiple members over and over again, single-handedly pushing them back up into the Astral Barrage. Goes to Icy, who finds the kill onto Longfound, and Beacon will end up going the way of the Wailing Banshees after Ultra Lord Bob made near infinite space on this Jormungandr.
And yeah, and just, Rush Ology and Lord Bob doing so well using Darkest Pillars and World Serpent to throw creating all of the space they could ever ask for on the Wailing Banshees and doing so much damage, forcing the entire enemy team of the Warriors of Albion to get pushed out. Getting them to stay in Beacon, and because the entire enemy team had to back for help a Gold Fury as well.
Bit of a re-engage attempted there by the Warriors of Albion. Sentinel of Zeus used by double, as well as Ratatosker ultimate for 12 gauge, but unable to find any picks. They do, however, have the health advantage at the moment and are stepping up to this Pyromancer. It's really only Hunter who's anywhere close. I think we'll see him step up to try and contest it. So Beacon and Gold Fury traded out for the Pyromancer.
Yeah, a good use by Warriors of Albion to try and even back up that gold a little bit, try and get something going back in their favor, knowing that they force out most of the Wailing Banshees to go ahead and grab that Pyromancer, get that first Pyromancer bomb of the game. But as you can see, that golden XP lead is still in the favor of the Wailing Banshees, doing very good throughout the start of this game.
These ADCs boxing over here in lane. And even though it looked like 2Icy had the upper hand, he has the level advantage. It's so hard to box a Hachiman at any stage in the game and needs to be careful over here, especially with how good we've seen Core Nickel be able to play on these Hunters. But I want to ask you about this build coming out of double. Genji's into Midgardian Mail are both items that we see relatively often, but back to back here without some of the more core things we're used to seeing out of a solo laner. Do you like this build, as it looks like we'll be able to get out safely for Ultra Lord Bob?
It's one of those things where you're kind of forced into it a little bit. You're into it, Gander, here in the solo lane. You have to get the Astral Barrage coming out too. Icy is going to take out Core Nickel. What a great snipe by him.
Incredible stuff out of 2Icy, who's still trying to chase out for more. Marticarus is here, and Hunter tries to get the root, but is unable to do so. But now members of the Warriors have rotated as well. Death of Above getting channeled will do a bit of damage to Paragon, but this is going the way of the Warriors for the moment, as 2Icy's in lots of trouble, forced to use the beads, forced to use the Aegis, and up into through the Cosmos goes the Ratatosker, chasing this kill out. Will land onto the ROM, but good root coming out of the Marticarus will not be enough. He will end up falling in trade for the kill onto 2Icy. Ends up being jungle for ADC, traded out here around the Gold Fury pit.
Yeah, and the Wailing Banshees getting a little bit more than the Warriors out there. But right now, this particular is going to get caught out.
Does get pulled back, hit by the tornado from Paragon, but luckily has the support of Rushology on the Ganesh and will be able to live. But that is what makes it scary for Marticarus. You don't have that ult, kind of a sitting duck.
And as I was going into about that Nike build, though, that Genji's Guard being one of those items that you're kind of forced into is a great item that you're going to pick up at some point in general, but forced into it early due to the magical presence of this Jormungandr and the Midgardian Mail forced into it when you are raining in, the Jormungandr autos effect and hit that Midgardian Mail. You have Jinx Q on this Erlong, you have a Marticarus and a Rama. You have 4 people that can use auto attacks quite effectively. It makes sense just to pick it up.
Lord Bob getting rotated on by 4 members here over in the solo lane, realizes this and will use that World Serpent to get out safely. Was attempting yet another blue buff invade, was unable to successfully steal away that one, but doesn't cost him too much. It does waste a lot of time on rotations from the Warriors in trade.
The Wailing Banshees, trying to get word coverage onto this Gold Fury, kind of like poke around, knowing that the Beacon is going to be coming up as well here very shortly. We're going to be expecting to see another big team fight over this mid lane Beacon.
Looks like first we might see a bit of a scuffle over in the dual lane, though, as the purple buff is respawning. Jinxed Q and Rushology have made their way over, but it's matched by 12 gauge. With a rotation from Hunter, there's a lot of damage, and Long Found will end up falling. Dharmic Pillars used just to secure that as well, and the purple buff invade is successful. With a pick onto the support, Wailing Banshees feel confident pulling this first Primal Fury here, and it doesn't look like anybody from the Warriors will try to contest it. Instead, knowing that it's happening, we'll head over to the Pyromancer and trade out objective for objective.
I mean, you've already lost your support. You know that you can't not fight back into that Wailing Beaches squad when they're a full five. Smart to just go for the Pyromancer there, but no one picking up the Pyromancer bomb as they're leaving. It is still sitting on the map, and now the Wailing Banshees are regrouping to try and go for that, Stygian beacon that is spawning right now.
Would see another fight. Ultra Lord Bob setting up those pools in preparation for if the Warriors want to try and contest this one. It seems like Longfound will at least stay local and look to do something, but he's the only member of the Warriors nearby. So this second Stygian beacon should go without a fight towards the Wailing Banshees.
Yeah, and during that, the Atlas did run over there and managed to get that Pyromancer bomb before it did dissipate.
Good to make sure they have that one, but Dharmic Pillars, and the T1 tower falls. Re-engaged here from this side of the Wailing Banshees. Death from above used, as well as the Astral Barrage. 2 Icy does not miss. We'll get another kill with that ROM ultimate on to Longfound. The World Serpent used as well. It looks like they're even looking to try and take this tier 2 tower here 19 minutes into the game, but Paragon will get credit for the kill onto Rushology. They do get the tower, and they lose their support and trade.
Yeah, sacking out the support for permanent gold for the entire team, I think is a worthwhile trade. Giving those tier 2 towers giving you 150 gold a piece per player is kind of well worth it for the team, since we know that support is never going to be worth nearly as much as that in these, even until the late game.
Oh, poor supports, man. You just put a price on their head, not even worth 150 gold. That's rough.
Well, you gotta remember, it's 150 gold times 5, so that's 750 gold. Most
Very true.
you're
very
not
true.
going to be getting that much from the support kills.
No, I agree. It's a worthwhile trade. They got the T1, they got the T2. It's definitely worth it to just continue that aggression, as it's leading to them having around a 4,000, 4,500 or so lead over the Warriors. So they have the advantage for the time being in almost 21 minutes into the game. Fire Giant is once again gonna start being on the menu if they can find a couple picks with a blinking double ult from Jinx Q plus the Dharmic Pillars and Death from above. So much damage, but Paragon still able to make it out off the back end. Sunder's used as well, and now it's Rushology who's in trouble. Mounted Archery does a lot of damage. Up into the tree goes the Ratatosk, who just needs to find the kill onto the Ganesh, and Cornicle will find that one. This was a fight that the Banshees wanted, but it's going the way of the Warriors so far. But Ultra Lord Bob has rotated into the back of this fight, gets the Aegis out of Cornicle, still on the chase, has the knock up. The Marticorous damage is good. Very low health bars, and Ultra Lord Bob will get the kill onto the Hachiman. Atlas trying to peel away as Paragon charges forward with full health once again. All of a sudden, it's Hunter who's in a lot of trouble, and Hunter who will fall to the hands of Paragon. The Warriors with a great counter engage to turn that fight in their favor.
Yeah, the Wailing Banshees not having 2 Icy of the ADC there are going to get, bite off a little bit more than they can chew. And, 2 Icy canceling the ult immediately, coming back down, faking out the Warriors. Albion and is able to slip away, even with 3 people at his feet.
That is so smart. I've never seen anybody do that before. That is incredibly clever out of 2 Icy to get out of there safely, because surely if he tried to just stall for time, he would have been in a lot of trouble once he landed.
Yeah, just a wild play there, able to keep himself alive. And, that fight in mid just going a little bit sideways due to not having your extra Hunter, not having your solo lane there. Barely dropping the kill on a Paragon that was able to escape and then re-engage onto that fight early on. In the middle of it, really kind of hurt the Wailing Banshees during that fight over the mid lane.
Jinxed Q, level 19 on the Erlang Shin, 3-0-6, will zone away or attempt to members of the Warriors of Albion, as the Gold Fury will go the way of the Wailing Banshees. And now the chase is on for the remaining members of the Warriors. will be able to make it out safely. Double using that Sentinel of Zeus to get a very big shield to make sure they are able to make it out safely. And once again, Pyromancer will be traded out in trade with the Oni Fury. They will be able to get that one and back up for the time being. So Lord Bob doesn't want to let them get away for free and is charging forward here. Doesn't look like they'll be able to find anything off the back end of it. But Jinxed Q, just undying so far, is definitely a thorn in the side of this warrior squad as Longfound just gets deleted.
But Nickel taking out Rushology as well in return. Gonna trade support for support. And right now this Wailing Banshees team was trying to hover around Fire Giant, get set up, maybe take a Fire Giant fight, having that additional word coverage. But with the falling of their Ganesh, just getting absolutely deleted by Nickel, and this Tiamat of a Paragon is gonna be sent back to base the hard way.
Yeah, it ends up being an even trade, support for support over there, so neither squad able to really step up towards the biggest objective on the map. And this is kind of what we saw in game one. Both of these teams were unable to get a clear win to allow them to pull the Fire Giant until much, much later in the game. We finally did see that first enhanced Fire Giant fall. Do you feel like it's going to be a lot of the same things here, or does the comp changes that we've seen with these drafts kind of lead towards one team having an advantage?
Both these teams are incredibly equal. I think the comp does give way to the Wailing Banshees having a bit more success, having that defensive structure to avoid those big dive.
Beads out of 12 gauges. The beacon is about to spawn, and both of these teams get ready to fight over it. Jinx Q low health as well, but up into the Astral Barrage goes to Icy, trying to get the kill onto Paragon, who's very low. World Serpent plus the Dharmic Pillars are all used, and Ultra Lord Bob will get that kill onto the mid laner of the Warriors. Blink in from Jinx Q as well as he tries to find more, but in the back line, Nike with the Thorns popped, Double doing as much as possible and will get a kill onto Rushology. The beacon was dropped in favor of the fight, but the Banshees will be able to back up and pick up the third and final beacon here in game number 2.
And this is huge for the Banshees, managing to get all 3 Stygian beacons this game, an additional 3% movement speed on all their players, and an additional 15% damage towards those structures and objectives. This is a big buff and makes it where this team of the Wailing Banshees can get in and out of these fights a bit easier than the Warriors of Albion can, and can secure their objectives and take these birds much easier.
Definitely a boon for the side of the Banshees, and the Titans will once again be marching down the solo lane with, as you mentioned last game, kind of takes out the ability to do the Fire Giant while the Titans distract. And the Banshees, they want to pull Fire Giant before the Titans even unleash, starting it right off the bat with their double ADC comp. Double is nearby and ready to try and disrupt, and it's enough just showing face to cause the Banshees to back up as the Titans begin their march down the shortest lane.
Yeah, it's really interesting not to see this Ganesh have a Shogun Skasari at any point through this game so far with the double ADC and the Ormagonder.
Double in trouble, has the shield though. Death Room buff used here, as well as the Gamma Ray Burst. Look at the damage coming out of Paragon, who dives towards 3, no fear on the Tiamat. And it forces the Banshees to back up for the time being. Jinx Q was on a big flank, but unable to find anything with it for the moment. The Titans are about to clash over in the solo lane, and Jinx Q could get caught out by 12 gauge here. Gets hit by the Ratatosker stun, but is tanky enough and survivable enough on the Erlang. Actually going up into through the Cosmos ultimate is the Ratatosker, instead favoring the fight over here towards the blue buff. And out of nowhere, Hunter is deleted. Low health bar for Ultra Lord Bob as well. And Cornic will get credit for that kill. 12 gauge makes it out with a sliver of HP as well as to Icy, but the same can't be said for Jinx Q. And Rushology, the only healthy member left on the side of the Wailing Banshees, but will not stay that way for long, is getting dove under the tier 2 tower, using the Dharma Pillars to buy as much time as possible, and is actually living quite well here. Uses the Ohm to give himself that extra tankiness, and will be able to live, at least for the time being. It bought enough time for 2 Icy to make his way back to this tier 2 tower.
Yeah, a little bit of miscommunication there between Double, Paragon, and this Atlas of Longfound, using that barrier of double put accidentally pushing Rustology out of some damage, managing to keep him alive. But now the Warriors of Albion having the opportunity to pick up this fire giant with very little contestation from the Wailing Banshees.
Yeah, too icy. Only really the one kind of close here, but he does not have the Astral Barrage to try and steal it away. Actually, just comes up now. But the Fire Giant is low. Gamma Ray Burst will be enough, and the Warriors pick up the first Fire Giant of game two after a good fight win over there with the Titans clashing. They'll look to pick up the Pyromancer as well. They will, even with Dharmic Pillars trying to force them away, shifting the gold in their favor just that bit much more. Wailing Banshees still have about 1,000 or so gold lead, but now with the siege that should follow shortly out of the Warriors, it's going to be on the Banshees to try and defend once again.
Yeah, the Warriors doing a great job trying to even this game back up, bringing the reins back into their favor. And, we got to talk about Double doing so well at bullying to Icy, staying in his face, distracting him for as long as he could, making it so that Astral Barrage could not go into the air and try and steal that Fire Giant until it's just a little bit too late.
Primal Fury seems to be the call for the Warriors right now, and they will not have any contest for it. They should be able to pick this one up for free. How do you feel about the Wailing Banshee siege defense in this game with their different comp?
You know, I I think the Warriors of Albion with this dive comp, with having this fire giant right now, are really going to have the ability to just really push in on these Wailing Banshees. They have the Ganesh, they have Jinx Q on this Erlong, and have a lot of CC on those frontliners, but is going to struggle because of just how well they can dive onto them.
Problems for Hunter, who gets pulled in by the Atlas on the soft tier 2 defense. Actually gets blocked by the pillar of Dharmic Pillars and will end up falling. Ratatoskr lands in the backline, and Paragon will get a kill onto Rushology. Too icy uses the beads and rolls away from the tower. Ultra Lord Bob in the middle of the entirety of the Warriors. The Albion team will end up falling. The bird is still alive, but the same can't be said for Jinx Q. And Too icy on the run makes it back to the fountain. Paragon diving so deep. The left side Phoenix falls, and it seems like they're going to try to go for the end here. There are some low health members, but the runic bomb was used, and it's just Too icy who falls, and the Titan should fall soon afterwards. And in what was a game that looked like the Banshees had all the advantage, the Warriors of Albion get the 2-0 set win.
Yeah, the Warriors of Albion really turning that game around, putting the pedal to the metal once they got those picks and was able to get that fire giant, knowing what they had going and just gunning it down onto the Wailing Banshees, them baiting them out from under the birds and just wiping them out, deciding and taking away that win that really looked like it was in the Banshees' favor for most of it.
Yeah, just insane conviction and just like fortitude coming out of the Warriors squad to be so behind for the majority of the game and just say, no, we can still fight this, we can still win this, and just get the game to win off of the back of one fight around the Fire Giant and then a good siege over there on the left Phoenix. They didn't even bother with the rest of the lanes because they didn't need to. They did that siege so cleanly.
Yeah, and just well done by, this Warriors of Albion squad being the team that gets to stay undefeated, showing why they are the now only undefeated team in that conference for the Sparta division.
Yeah, definitely. Continuing their streak has got to feel great. On the other side, the Wailing Banshees dropping the first set of the season so far definitely does not mean things are over. They can learn from this and continue because they are a definitely strong team in their own right. Just didn't end up going their way today. And I gotta say, at least personally, I think I might have to try out this Tiamat build in some casual games.
Yeah, that build really shining through and doing quite a lot of work, having the top damage through both games, even with this Book of Thoth Tablet of Destinies build, which I know a lot of people are really sleeping on and really do not believe works, but A Paragon showing that it's still up to snuff.
Yeah, it could be the build is still good. Could be Paragon is just that good on Tiamat. But they will get the game two win here and the set win over the Wailing Banshees. And that's going to do it for us today on the Olympus Smite League. Once again, I have been Dr. Shrew, joined by Bloody Lifetime on the cast with Cocky on production. We all thank you for joining us for an exciting couple of games here today. We will see you next week on the OSL.